Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Leading Yourself podcast. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever found yourself standing in the way of your own success? Maybe you set goals and they just slip through your fingers time and time again. Or perhaps you felt trapped in a cycle of self-sabotage, unsure of why you can't seem to break free. Well, the truth is simple and yet profound. Sometimes we are our worst enemies. Today on the podcast, we are shining a spotlight into this topic of self-sabotage. Together, we're going to explore the patterns that hold us back, the beliefs that limit our potential, and the strategies that we can use to break free from the chains of self-sabotage. Because no matter where you are in your journey, you're always room for growth and transformation. So if you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever wondered why success seems to elude you, get ready to take control of your destiny and become the best version of yourself. Join me as we embark in this journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and liberation. It's time to stop standing on our own way and start living the life that we're meant to lead. Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. This is your host, Carolina de Arriba. I'm an HR professional, health and fitness coach, wife, mom, and above all things, a goal-getter. In this podcast, we're going to be digging into all things leadership, professional and career development, habits, and relationships. This is a podcast for those who want to become the best version of themselves. Those who have big dreams and are willing to embrace the journey and put in the work to achieve them. My goal is to share with you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your journey. So let's dig into today's episode. When things don't go our way, especially when we're working towards achieving our goals, we tend to fall into this habit of blaming the people, the circumstances, and the environment around us. But here's the truth. Some people are winning while others are losing, even in the same conditions. So it cannot be possible that us not making progress is the people, circumstances, and environment's fault. What if it were actually ourselves, the ones holding us back from success? What if it's our thoughts and limiting beliefs, the ones that are truly stopping us from living the life that we want? Have you ever heard the phrase, you are your worst enemy, or get out of your own way? Have you ever wondered what it really means? I mean, what does self-sabotage even mean? And how is it possible that I might be purposely sabotaging my success and my biggest dreams when I want them for so long? To explain this, I found a definition that is very simple, explained by Alice Conning Shelby, that says, self-sabotage is when we want something and then go back and make sure it doesn't happen. Maybe you're still wondering how impossible this is, but you'll be surprised on how often we self-sabotage. We sabotage our own dreams and success. For example, have you ever get distracted at work? You might have getting started working on something that is very important that you really want to finish, and then all of a sudden you find yourself checking social media or even staring mindlessly at the wall. Have you ever put yourself down in front of other people? Have you ever deep down thought that you actually didn't deserve to be successful and happy? Well, all of these are behaviors that actually are a manifestation of the self-sabotage. Because in the end, that's what self-sabotage is, right? It's a behavior that becomes sabotaging and harmful when it starts creating problems and obstacles in our path to success and achieving our long-term goals. But why does that happen? Why do we set ourselves for failure? Well, I want to start talking about How does self-sabotage look like? What are some of the things that we do to sabotage ourselves? And then we'll talk about what can we do to overcome them. The first one for me is procrastination. Procrastination is a big one. You know you should, but you don't. Perhaps you miss deadlines or put it somewhere where you cannot see it. This is a clear sign of self-sabotage. You are constantly putting off important tasks and leaving everything to the last minute. It kind of feels like you are avoiding the situation as much as possible, or even when you're working on it, you constantly find new ways to distract yourself. The second way that maybe you are self-sabotaging yourself is you never finish what you start. This is often linked to perfectionism, which we're going to get to in a minute. But you start something, but then it simply doesn't happen. You never get around of doing it. That leads to perfectionism. Setting impossible standards for yourself is another very common example of self-sabotage. Consequently, because of those high standards, you become paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes or not meeting those standards. You can't take action until it's quote unquote the right time or the right conditions. Or you believe that you need to work more on your skills before you can do something. Perfectionism is a sneaky sabotage that prevents you from moving forward. Another one is negative self-talk or negative thinking. Is that inner dialogue that is super critical that we've talked about here on the podcast before. You are basically berating yourself from past mistakes. You're always criticizing yourself. That's another form of self-sabotage. Another form can be that you trust others more than you trust yourself. The problem with this habit is that we give more value to other people's opinion rather than our own. I mean, it's okay when we look for guidance and advice from others, especially if it's people that we trust. But you should learn to trust your intuition and stand for your ideas and what you want. What is best for you, not what others think. In the end, no matter how much these people might know you, they're not you. And they don't have the whole picture. So even if it's scary, you need to start making your own decisions and trusting them. Another way that we self-sabotage is when we focus on the negative side of things. You know, that moment when you receive an opportunity in life, it could even be in the most basic cases, like going out with friends or planning a trip. But the first thing your mind jumps into is the negative side of everything. Oh, but I don't have money. Or how will I get back? Or what if the weather is bad? Or I don't have anything to wear. This type of thinking automatically discourages you from doing anything out of your comfort zone and prevents you from taking new opportunities. Another way is when you get a little bit of progress, a little bit of success, you stop the things that make you get there, right? You celebrate for too long. You let momentum cool down. And then you do less of the very activity that helped you produce the result in the first place. Another way of self-sabotaging is overthinking. This happens when you cannot decide on one answer, but you have many. That's okay. But the fact that you stay in your head is usually a sign of self-sabotage. This is honestly something that I struggle with myself, being an overthinking, especially for big decisions. It's becoming sometimes analysis paralysis. You probably have heard that expression. Let me explain. Let's imagine that there is a project that you're working on to renovate your house. You start your project with brainstorming of ideas on what you want to do, how you're going to do it, the materials that you're going to use. But you reach a point where you have so many ideas and have thought so much about how and when you should start with each thing that your brain can't process those ideas anymore and you become paralyzed. And believe it or not, it happens to us more than we think. It is that moment when you become paralyzed by all the possibilities and different things that could happen. Another way is self-criticism. You think that you're not worthy, that you're not enough. And as a result, you don't believe in yourself and you constantly criticize yourself, which prevents you from taking action. Another thing can be imposter syndrome. You think that you're a fraud. You feel like you're not good enough to deserve success. All of these things are manifestations of self-sabotage. These are different ways that we self-sabotage ourselves all the time. Maybe a few very tactical examples, right? Let's say that you are on a diet because you want to lose weight and then you overeat or binge eat. That's a form of self-sabotage. Making impulsive purchases and accumulating debt. Another can be stop prioritizing self-care as you start to give more importance to other people's needs. Another thing can be playing the victim, continuously blaming external circumstances and other people for your problems rather than taking responsibility for your actions and your choices. All of these are just examples of how we self-sabotage every day in every area of our lives. But then the question is, why? Why do we self-sabotage ourselves? There is this book that I read once called The Big Leap. I put the link on the show notes of today's podcast episode. I think the author is Gay Hendricks. And in his book, I found one of the best explanations as to why we self-sabotage ourselves. He says in his book, we have limits to how much love, success, and creativity we allow ourselves to enjoy. And when we reach that limit, we end up self-sabotaging. We only believe we are worthy of so much, and when fear and insecurities and limiting beliefs come in, they end up activating this behavior, which makes sure that we fall to our efforts to succeed. Have you ever been in an incredible good place in life where you were happy and everything went your way, and you thought to yourself, is this real? It seems too good to be true. And suddenly, all of these thoughts about how things will start to go wrong poison your mind because you don't think that you deserve to feel this good. This is how self-sabotaging starts. And as soon as these thoughts begin, we start falling back into old habits. And that push us to stay in our comfort zone, or even worse, sometimes sends us backwards to our starting point. That's how self-sabotage looks and why it starts. Because we don't believe we're worthy of more. We impose kind of like a glass ceiling to ourselves. And once we reach that glass ceiling, we push ourselves down. We don't allow ourselves to get beyond that point. In the book, he talks about 4 reasons why you could be self-sabotaging yourself. He talks about that you feel like you're flawed and you're not deserving of good things. You don't believe yourself to be good enough. That's one of the reasons why we self-sabotage. The second one he talks in the book is you fear others abandoning you because success brings change. Another reason he talks about is that you believe that success will make you a burden to others. And the last one he talks about in the book is that you don't want to outshine others with your success. And these are the 4 reasons why we self-sabotage. Now, I think there is another reason for this. another theory on why we self-sabotage, and that is because it gives us the illusion of control. It gives us the illusion of certainty. See, you pushing for your goals and your wildest dreams requires you to get outside of your comfort zone, to get outside on the unknown, where you really don't know what is going to happen. You don't have the certainty about what is going to happen. But when you start self-sabotaging and you keep yourself in that comfort zone, that gives you an illusion that you're in control of your life, that you can have the certainty of what is going to happen. And a lot of times that's what we're looking for. We're looking for certainty and control. So far, we've understand what sabotaging ourselves means, how it looks like, and why we do it. And now I think it's time to discover how can we stop self-sabotaging. Because if you're listening to this podcast, I bet that is the reason why you hit play. You want to know how to stop self-sabotaging. Well, there's different techniques that I have researched, and I'm going to share with you. Some of these I have personally implemented. Some of these are part of the research that I did in preparation for today's podcast. The first technique is called the 2 important decision. Once you decide to stand up to your self-sabotaging behaviors, you need to make 2 decisions. The first one is making the decision of acting like an adult and accepting the responsibility for your own thoughts and actions. We talked about this at the beginning of the episode. When something goes wrong, our first response is to blame others or to blame external factors for that failure. The truth is, the success doesn't depend on your situation or your environment. These are only excuses that we use to avoid the feeling of failure. At the end of the day, we need to accept that in most situations, we are the ones to blame, or at least to carry part of the blame for that failure. However, we typically are not prepared for the possibility that we might have failed or make a mistake, or be anything other than a human, and therefore we turn into our victim role play and we lie to ourselves. But to overcome self-sabotaging, you need to accept responsibility for your actions and your thoughts. Now, I'm going to let you in a little life lesson. Do you want to know the secret to turning your failure into success? It's very simple. Just learn from your mistakes. A failure will never be a failure once you learn from your mistakes. Instead, it will become a teaching, and it will represent a very important lesson that you need to learn in order to succeed. Because that's how we as human beings, we learn, through trial and error. So don't let failures make you quit. Instead, change your mindset around them and see them as what they really are. They're a teaching method and a lesson we need to learn. Don't allow society's misperception of failure prevent you from achieving your dreams. Now, I talk about 2 decisions. The second decision that you need to make if you want to stop self-sabotage is to decide what you want to concentrate on in every situation. And to help you do this, I want to share with you some questions that can help you in doing that. I personally use some of these. One is, what am I responsible for in this situation? Another question you can ask yourself is, what would I do and think about in this situation if I looked at it from my ground up point of view? Another question you can ask yourself is, what would I like to focus my attention on? And the last one, what would I like to do? So that was the first technique you can use to overcome self-sabotage. Another one is just recognizing self-sabotage and becoming aware of your thoughts. You know, this probably should have been the first one that I share, but I'm going to share it right now. You know, I think this is one of the most important strategies to end the cycle of self-sabotage, and is to recognize when you self-sabotage yourself. Because to solve a problem, we first have to be aware that we have a problem and know when it happens. So, have you ever wanted to start something that you should be doing, but suddenly you find yourself checking Instagram, your inbox, or doing something completely different from what you intended? As we already know, this is self-sabotaging behavior. And one thing you should know about self-sabotaging is that it is very sneaky, and it takes advantage of every opportunity it has to make us fail. Did you know that the moment between when we start an action and our self-sabotage behavior kicked in is just a split of a second? A split of a second in which our beliefs and thoughts convince us of procrastinating on that task that we were intending to start. But what if I told you that that split second is enough to stop self-sabotaging behaviors? And you might be asking yourself, but how do I do that, Carolina? Well, by becoming aware of your thoughts so you can recognize the self-sabotaging action and stop it before they even happen. The problem is that we are used to living in autopilot. We go through our day in autopilot mode, and we aren't even aware of what we're doing. So to help you raise awareness over your thoughts and turn that autopilot mode off, I want to share a couple of techniques that have enormously helped me in stopping self-sabotage. The first one is to write your thoughts in a journal. Keeping a journal where I can write my thoughts in, even if it's just once a week, it can greatly help to become more aware of the thoughts themselves. Because when journaling, what we're doing is we're actively aware of what we're thinking. The second one is to practice mindfulness. Once you start becoming aware of your thoughts, you gain the power to control your thoughts and the actions that come after that thought. So as soon as that unwanted thought enters your mind, you can stop it before it becomes into a self-sabotaging form. You can turn it into a self-improving behavior. Another technique that can help control self-sabotage is to change our limiting beliefs. I mentioned before when I was talking about why we self-sabotage is because we imposed a glass ceiling to ourselves. And once we hit that glass ceiling, we stop, or we even take steps back. And that glass ceiling is nothing else than limiting beliefs. Because in the end, self-sabotaging is not the problem. It's just the symptom. Self-sabotage is simply the mechanism our minds use to keep us in our comfort zone where we're safe and protected. And the truth is, our brains have one mission and one mission only, and that is keeping us safe. So in order to eliminate this behavior once and for all, we have to eliminate it from the root, meaning we have to change our limiting beliefs and overcome our insecurities. Now, I know that is easier said than done, and we probably can do a full episode just on that. I think we actually did one a couple of years ago, and maybe it can be a good idea to bring that topic back. But I want to share a couple of key steps with you right away so you have something to work on after listening to our conversation today. Once you start to incorporate the second technique that we talk about, recognizing when you're trying to self-sabotage yourself, I want you to write down these situations so that later on you can reflect on them and ask yourself the following questions. The first one, what is the best thing that could happen if you achieve your goals before you self-sabotage yourself? Number two, What is the downside or price that you paid for achieving the goal? Meaning, what is the worst thing that could happen if you were to achieve the goal? The third question is, what are you secretly afraid would happen if you achieve the goal? And the fourth question, what is your self-sabotage behavior? What are the actions, right? The avoidance behaviors, the resistance, the procrastination, the perpetual overwhelm or overcommitment, the patterns of drama and busyness, the perfectionism, the making excuses. How is self-sabotaging showing up for you for this specific goal? The goal with this question is that you can find the limiting beliefs, the insecurities, the fears that are making you act the way that you're acting. So once you identify and define this, the next step would be challenging and eliminating these negative ideas and fears that are holding back from success. To achieve this, there are several methods that you can use to neutralize your limiting beliefs and overcome your fears and insecurities. The method you need to use depends on how strong it is printed in your subconscious. And I did a full episode about this, and I promise we'll bring it back to the Leading Yourself podcast. Otherwise, this is going to become a multi-hour episode. And I know that you're on a schedule, and probably by now you're like, okay, this is enough for today. I have many other things that I could share with you, and maybe we do a part 2 of this, but I want to leave you with some final thoughts on self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is a harmful behavior through which we create obstacles in our daily life and hold ourselves back from success, from achieving the goals that we want to achieve and living the life that we want. There are many reasons why we might self-sabotage ourselves, but they all come down to our limiting beliefs, to our insecurities, and fears that trigger these toxic actions. To overcome self-sabotage, we need to make 2 important decisions. The first one we said, we need to take responsibility for our actions and our thoughts instead of falling into the toxic habit of blaming external factors. And the second decision, we need to decide that what we want to focus on in each situation. Then we talk about that to stop self-sabotage, we need to become aware of our thoughts. And we talk about that journaling and mindfulness can help us with that. And finally, we said that we want to work on overcoming those limiting beliefs because those are the root cause of that symptom, which is self-sabotage. I hope that this episode was helpful and inspiring, that it got you thinking and reflecting about how, when, why you self-sabotage yourself, and you have an idea on what you can do to stop that, because you deserve living the life that you want. You deserve achieving the goals that you set your mind and heart to achieve. Don't let you be the thing that stops you from achieving all of those things. I hope you have an amazing day, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week here on the Leading Yourself podcast.